Hello and welcome to episode 388 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Weekly Podcast of Many Topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and I'm joined today by Wes Iliff.
Hey, everybody.
I skipped an extra intro line and just went right to talking to Wes because we're gonna start exactly where we left off from last week. We were still talking about Rhapsody, a musical adventure, a 1998/2000 PS1 RPG that, I don't know, as I was playing it, Wes, I was mostly having a good time. This is a cozy, mostly fun RPG, but also I was sort of thinking to myself, is that it, really? Because whenever there was like a plot point, it seemed to resolve so quickly and abruptly that I don't know, maybe I'm used to RPGs taking their sweet time a little bit more than this game does. Did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, and it's also like I feel like it's part and parcel with their fairy tale style for storytelling to some degree. Like this is just a series of fairy tales, but as a result, a lot of times it's really easy to predict how this is going to go one way or the other, and they move pretty quickly just to kind of get you in and out and on to the next fairy tale.
A large part of the plot is finding 5 magical stones, not unlike the 6 multicolored orbs from Dragon Quest. But even then, it's just sort of you're just in and out with the orbs, and I think what could be really cool, powerful, interesting vignettes just sort of are, I don't know, it's so fast and abrupt and weird that sometimes it was almost shocking. And I think we will talk about some of the shocking moments.
Yeah.
But as we experience, do you remember? We're gonna bounce around a little bit, probably talking about all 5 of the stone side quests. Although I think we did mention the volcano last episode. Do you remember when you had to get the key to the mines, and you find the guy with the key at the restaurant where you fought some cats earlier in the game, and it looks like he ascends to heaven?
Yeah.
It's like did we just get a key off of a ghost, or did he leave but they didn't want to animate him leaving? I just like there's so many just head scratching moments that are like weirdly dark or morbid if you think about them too much.
It's also hilarious that every single enemy in the game, when you defeat them, does the same thing. They just kind of fly up and disappear, which for big climactic boss battles, pretty funny looking and a little bit totally disjointed, maybe.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it's kind of like you're playing a Mario game, and Bowser's death scene is just a upside down pop, like hitting a Goomba.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it with the exact amount of every enemy is handled with the exact same amount of drama, which is I don't know, just a little bit weird. Even though this game does have stakes and a conflict, and and can be explained in 1 or 2 sentences easily, it feels like the stakes are very low.
Yeah.
I almost like you're dealing with death and tragedy all the time in this game, but I feel like I'm never really in danger because the game is so easy and everything resolves so quickly. But basically what I'm saying is, Wes, when I say a game has pace issues, it means things are being dragged out too long, and
Yeah.
it's taking too long to get to the fun part of the game. But this game's pacing issues are bewildering.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because the only parts that felt like they dragged on too long for me were just the dungeons, and that's because they were so hard to navigate. Everything else just flies past, and even then, I think the dungeons feel longer than they actually took because it's still like a 9-hour game.
Yeah, the dungeons I think are basically medium length, but because they're so samey and so repetitive, they feel longer than they actually are. And I'm pretty good at navigating dungeon map stuff. I mean, like designing digital maps is literally part of my job. So I have a good mental map for RPG dungeons. I thought these dungeons were too long, but mostly too samey. The fact that every dungeon in the game was either identical cave corridors or identical tower/temple corridors was, I don't know, very disappointing, borderline offensive to me.
Including the final dungeon. It just has a unique palette swap for the decoration, but it's still the temple all through and through.
Yeah, it's still the temple tiles, but with a unique color, and I think there's 1 or 2 segments on sort of like outdoor bridges and balconies.
Yeah, one on
But
either side of the the castle.
it was, I mean, it was the opposite of an exciting epic final dungeon. I did not do the Netherworld dungeon, which is the optional segment of the game. I think you fight some kind of a super boss at the end. I think it's a super version of the final boss. And there's the side quest for one set of puppets is down there. The night puppets, which are Chiba, Albatross, and Duke. Like their side quest is down there. But but I mean, that's also an identical palette swap dungeon. I only looked at it on YouTube for a few minutes. If it, like, part of the fun of RPGs is the feeling of growing stronger along with your characters and doing exciting navigation or exploration or combat. And I think Rhapsody's biggest weakness is that um even though it's unique in tone and has cool RPG ideas, the actual execution of like what makes an RPG mechanically an RPG just isn't interesting here.
I felt like it was a generation or two behind in design for being a PS1 game. Like, this thing would have been more at home on an older console. It would have been easier to forgive some of the map design choices and some of the lighter touch on some of the side stories.
Yes, although you know what, I'm almost of two minds about that. I think parts of Rhapsody absolutely are fit in with a good PS1 RPG.
That's true.
Like the musical stuff would have been very challenging on 16-bit hardware, and things like having the puppet recruiting and puppet side quests and monster recruiting, like all of that, all of those systems, I think do feel PS1 to me because there wasn't a lot of. There weren't specific side quests for every recruitable throwaway skill that you get in old SNES RPGs.
Yeah.
But the dungeons and the encounters could have been done on a PlayStation 1 or possibly even an NES. If I mean, short of things like the animations and the audio. But we've been a little bit negatively tinging this early part of the discussion, Wes. What were your final impressions when you rolled credits eventually? Um, what positives do you take away from the experience?
You know what? Maybe the best example of how I came away from this was I instantly went onto the eShop and watched the trailers for the Marvel Kingdom games because I was so interested in how this concept would progress because I really love a lot of the core ideas of this game. There are elements of it that are an absolute blast, and at 9 hours, it's hard to get too frustrated with any of its negative points because you're breezing through it. I was charmed by a lot of it. A couple of the songs actually were like kind of worked for me, even though the setup of the songs didn't feel like an epic proper Broadway musical like I was kind of hoping for. There were some standout songs, and that spoke to me in a big way. Big musical fan. That that's the reason I was excited to try this game. And the doll designs are pretty on point, honestly. I found a lot of the dolls that you recruit that I absolutely loved and wanted to play around with. So I was constantly flopping my party around until like Flare popped up and he became permanent because he's a cute baby dragon with a shell on his butt.
Yeah, I think I maybe alluded to this in the previous episode, but after leveling a couple monsters, like maybe 5 or 6, up to around 30, I settled on Flare, uh, Shartay, and Night Spawn for my team for the entire rest of the game. It was just those were my three, and I was I mean I didn't have a single encounter that I couldn't resolve by blasting with spells.
Yeah, I actually decided to keep a physical person with me and kept Duke instead of Night Spawn. But otherwise, my party was much the same as yours, and Blair and Shartay took care of all of the, the random encounters through the end of the game.
Yeah, and we mentioned this in this episode and the previous episode. This game is so not challenging. I really did think for a while, like, is this intended for small children or first time RPG players?
And it would work pretty well for that. Um, you know, as much as I would wish for a mini map the whole time inside those dungeons, if you're a first timer and looking for something, this could kind of work.
Yeah, yeah. Wes, I feel basically the same as you. Like, when I finished the game, I'm like, well, that was a little underwhelming, but
Mm,
it's unique in tone and has good character designs and monster designs and puppet designs. I mean, puppets are sort of in between characters and monsters as far as I interpret them.
yeah.
Um, but I think I mentioned this last week also. I am more interested in trying those other games.
Yeah. It's a good start when it makes you wanna play the rest, even if you didn't, like, adore this one, which I liked this one. I didn't really adore it, but I was charmed by it.
Yeah, this is not sniffing any of my top 10 PS1 games even remotely.
Yeah.
But sort of partway through playing it, I wish listed the other Marvel Kingdom collection on my game sales tracker. And if I see it for like 60% off one day down the line, I probably will get it. Like because it's if even if it's not a brilliant RPG, it's at least interesting and mostly good.
Mhm.
And I didn't feel like it wore out its welcome when I was when I played the end of the game. If my I mean in part of my discussion about the pacing of this game, I think it might have been benefited from being a little longer. That's not the worst complaint to have. It's like, well, I was kind of enjoying this. I wish it was a little bit longer. That's a slightly, I mean, that's either a backhanded compliment or like a gentle admonishment. I'm not sure.
I the one big thing that I was hoping for was just a few more musical numbers, especially at the end. I was hoping for a big send-off instead of just kind of a credits song.
And
Um,
the credit song wasn't bad. I mean,
no, it wasn't.
it's a credits J-pop song, and you and I have probably heard 30 of those bare minimum each. My issue with the musical numbers was like I wouldn't have minded if there was more of them, but I wished they were a little better. I think maybe they're better in Japanese, but
Mm,
I mean, as someone who does occasionally listen to Broadway musical soundtracks, it's like those are better than what Rhapsody gave us.
yes.
I grew up with Disney animated films, which are basically musicals, and then eventually started listening to Broadway musicals. Those have better music than this, which is, I mean, I think a legitimate comment, but also these are some of the most talented and skilled composers and musicians in the world working on those things. So
Yes.
ten Pesato, you're not as good as like Elton John and Alan Menken.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone's holding that standard, so I think it's fine.
But let's talk about the actual gameplay part of the game. Where we left off, we were in the middle of the Find the Stones side quest, which I think is I would call Act Two, Wes. I guess because
Yeah.
Act Three is so brisk. I don't even want to call this game an Act Three. It's like Act One is meeting the prince and marginally kidnapping the prince, and Act Two is finding the stones and saving the prince.
Yeah.
Um, and we mentioned the volcano thing. I want to revisit that a little bit again. Wes, I was only speculating about it last week, but I truly think you killed Flair's parents, and by turning Flair into a puppet, he is basically undead. I truly believe that now because
Yeah, it's possible for you to kill a lot of guardians, a lot of, like, good creatures in this game.
if you level up Flare to 30 and go back to the volcano, you'll see some monsters sort of harassing the area the nest where you found Flare, and you defeat the monsters. Then Flare sees the ghosts of his parents and then seems to ascend with them. So that's Flair's side quest. Every doll in this game, every puppet in this game has a dedicated side quest. Sometimes it's just like one line of dialogue, and but it looks like the spirit of the puppet ascends, and then but you get to keep the puppet as an ally. It's just they probably don't have the power of speech anymore. Um, but yeah, I really do think that there's a weird dark underbelly of this game where puppet masters are tethering souls to inanimate objects, and in order so the puppeteer can help them achieve their goal or their dream or their regret, and allowing them to ascend. I really think that's what puppeteers are in the world of
Yeah.
Moral Kingdom.
And it really feels like something that has to be intentional but that they didn't really want to focus on. They wanted to leave it for you to kind of figure that out to a degree because they don't belabor it. They don't, in a lot of games they would talk about pretty explicitly how you're freeing these lost souls or what have you. In Rhapsody, it's just kind of a matter of course of playing the game and doing the side quests.
Yeah, and in I don't know if you've played Phantom Brave, but that's a strategy RPG that Nipponichi released several years later in the
Mhm.
oh shoot, it was after Disgaea, so like probably 04 or 05 range. But in that game, you're I think she's even called a necromancer. I'd have to look it up. Let's see, Phantom Brave. Uh, yeah, Marona is the main character of that game, and she I'm trying to remember what her job was. But basically,
Uh,
she can see ghosts and manipulate ghosts, and she can take spirits and put them into everyday objects so they manifest as a monster or an ally. So I don't know, you put a ghost into a rock, and then they'll turn into a little I don't know, a little rock spirit and have high defense because you picked a rock instead of a plant, things like that. But so like this feels kind of like what Morona was doing in Phantom Brave, but in Phantom Brave it is clearly communicated that Morona is doing something unnatural. She's shunned by her local community for basically being a necromancer of sorts, even though she is a wholesome, cute little girl. So like I think that maybe Rhapsody is like an early draft of their ideas for Phantom Brave, but they really sugarcoat the assisting spirits in their afterlife part of the game. But I mentioned what you do if you take Flare back to the volcano, and I think the cutoff point is level 30 because I did the thing with with Shartae and her sister,
mm.
and and it happened right at the stroke of her sister getting to level 30. But basically, that's just a line of dialogue. They just say thank you for helping us and caring for us, and then they ascend, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel like within the plot of the game, like maybe Cornet doesn't even fully understand. Like she never seems to fully understand the powers of her horn and what exactly she's doing. So I wonder if there's a little bit of that to it where you're not necessarily getting all of that because she doesn't necessarily get all that. She knows that she's somehow helping, and that's good enough for her.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think what she's doing is horrible for the mostly because a lot of the time
Mhm.
I mean she from an early age with Kururu giving her the horn, or no, I guess her mom giving her the horn and then Kururu instructing her a little bit, and we'll talk about Kururu more later, I promise.
Yes.
um I think from a very early age, when she didn't understand what was happening at all, she did believe she was helping the puppets. And even as a young adult, she still is helping puppets. Like what she's doing with Shartae. Shartae was abandoned and wants to find her sister. So Cornet's like, "Oh, sure, of course I'll help you find your sister." And she does help her find her sister. So a lot of the times these puppets do want to be helped and guided by Cornet, but
Mhm.
sometimes it feels like she's like with maybe with Flair and with the three night puppets that hate her grandfather for unclear reasons. That might be against their will. It's different. And again, I didn't do a lot of these side quests. I know that one the three Egg brothers, their side quest is like there's a sick child and you have to find something in the ancient dungeon to help the sick child. But those are basically just three possibly children or possibly just naive brothers that want to be a hero, that want to be heroes.
Yeah.
So you by helping them play act being heroes for one dungeon, that's what accomplishes their dreams. It's it's still weird, and maybe it's because this game has everything fading upwards as a symbol of departure or death. It really does like give a strange dark undertone to this game. And I know the darkest undertone of all might be what happens in on Frog Island.
Yeah. Speaking of dark.
Let's actually talk about those side quests. I mean, we did the volcano. I think we talked a little bit about Snow White last time, but it's the town of Hunters that has a relationship with the Nine Tails Tower, where
Mhm.
they're allowed to hunt the foxes of the Nine Tails, but in a limited and respectful manner to for their own well being and economy. And that's how how a predator-prey relationship should be in the natural world. But then you get to upset the natural world by trying to take the Thunderstone of the Nine Tails, possibly wiping them out. Did you take the Thunderstone, or did you decline to fight the Nine Tails when you got up there?
I declined. I couldn't do it.
I couldn't either, mostly because I felt like they had to give me a way to continue the game.
Yes. By
But
choosing to do the kind thing, they
yeah,
wouldn't penalize you in this fairy tale.
exactly. So like given the option, I wanted to do the kind thing, and I figured I wouldn't be penalized. And if they did penalize me, it's like whatever. I have a save file from 5 minutes earlier because that's how
That
long
too.
it takes. That's how long it takes to do anything in this game. But they give you a holy stone instead, which is a fair enough substitute for a thunderstone. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess there is a holy element thing in this game besides Shartae. Um, and then again, the highlight of the whole Nine Tails quest is probably the Mountain Man song you get at the beginning of the hotel, where Cornet is like sort of interrupting, going like, is this normal? Does he sing this every time? Like,
Every time, yes.
oh boy. But anyway, the volcano and the Nine Tails Tower are just two of the five sort of main side quests of part two. The next one I want to talk about is Oasis, and okay, Wes, I have a lot of questions about this one.
Yeah,
Um,
not surprised.
um, First of all, because there is a fully functional underground rail in the mines by Oasis, do we think that this is a dystopian post-apocalypse future where there's a train and they seem to understand it in the world as an ancient relic?
That part I missed.
I don't like. Well, why are there trains in one part of the game
Yeah.
that are basically abandoned and unused, and nowhere else in the game is there any technology like it?
Signs of industrialization, random trains, and Etoile's guns. That's about it.
Right, that's right. There are more firearms than I was remembering, but it doesn't matter because the train tunnels have been taken over by some kind of giant sandworm? Question mark.
Which you're just kind of tasked to just accept.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, tasked to just accept is the entire vibe of everyone inside the sandworm,
Yeah.
because
That part's kind of bleak.
yeah, running it back a little bit. Etoile is also looking for the magic stones like you are. You go to the town of Oasis. They mention, oh, Etoile went into the mine and locked it behind her because the Earth Stone is supposed to be there. No, I'm sorry. The Wind Stone is supposed to be there. The Earth Stone is Frog Island. So you find a guy who has the key. He appears to possibly pass away. You unlock the mine, go into the dungeon, and let's say 5 or 6 rooms in, you are eaten by the sandworm just like everyone else is. And so the sandworm seems to have eaten multiple train cars where a community of folks have been quietly living, and they have just accepted their fate as well to an alarming degree. Like there are people that are like, well, I mean, we're in the sandworm now, and there's nothing you can do, so we've all given up on ourselves. And there's even a couple that said, we just had our child here. It's the first child born in the sandworm. I guess that means we can be a community here forever and give up on leaving? Question mark. It's
Yeah, a lot of
it,
those people are just okay, this is our life now.
I wonder if like the interior of the worm is like secreting some kind of I don't know, some kind of neuroinhibitor or something
Yeah.
that just lets people give up on life very easily. Because even Etoile, who is maybe the most full of life character in this entire game, she's also been eaten by the sandworm. She seems on the verge of giving up, even though she can't have been in there for longer than a few days.
Yeah.
But
It
then there's
happens quick.
yeah, but there's a musical number where Cornet encourages Etoile to keep on living, and then they plot to kill the sandworm and exit its body.
And I need to
And
sidetrack this for a second real quick, just because the
please,
reason one of my favorite details of the game is the fact that the reason Etoile is seeking out the stones isn't because she has any romantic feelings for the prince, isn't even because she necessarily wants to save the prince. She just likes to win. And that's like her whole reasoning.
that's
It's like,
right. And I think she's furious that Cornet dare tie her in the
yes,
in the Miss Marl Kingdom contest or whatever that was in part one.
even though she did not want the prize in any way, shape, or form.
No, she's a bored rich girl who I think likes Cornet but refuses to lose in anything.
Yes.
And Cornet is more wholesome and good-hearted than A12. A12 is not bad. She just uh she just has not had a great upbringing and only cares about winning and being the best, which
Really
is
struggles to show feelings other than that.
right. And there was a scene right at the end of Act One. Maybe we mentioned this, where the prince and Cornet are having a moment, and Kuru and Etoile are hiding behind, I don't know, plants or statues or something, spying on them, going like, "Oh, this is so good. Maybe they're gonna kiss." In a way that's in a way that's like the same energy as someone watching like a romantic telenovela or something. So A12 is treating the whole save the prince thing as sidebar entertainment and not as something that she wants.
This is one of many reasons why I love Etoile so much. She was a high point of the game for me.
Yeah, maybe in other comedy games or anime or something, like if someone's really into reading shoujo manga, that's the kind of vibe I get from A12. Like someone
Very much so.
that just wants to see romantic situations play out around them and necessarily doesn't necessarily want it for themselves. But yeah, A12 is, I wouldn't say she's relatable, but she's very entertaining, and her motives are very, very clear from the beginning, which I appreciate.
Yeah, she's very straightforward and doesn't try to mask any of her lesser attributes.
Which makes her 15 seconds or so of being depressed really a little bit jarring in this scene.
Absolutely. It's not something you'd think she'd ever show based on what you've known about her before.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm putting this in big air quotes. This leads to one of the most challenging parts of the game, where you have to uh, go into the sandworm, and Etoile and her party and you and your party have to kill the left and right hearts of the sandworm at exactly the right moment, which means you have to deal the finishing blow on Cornet's heart on exactly the sixth turn. And for a while, I wasn't sure if she meant like the sixth turn that you take. So would it have to be like A12 and each of her three puppets get one turn, and then the second puppet on the next round goes, or if it was Cornet's sixth turn exactly? It turns out it was that second one. So I made a mistake and
Yeah,
then
me too.
killed and then took care of it the second time. Um, but yeah, and then there's a boss fight where I think you get A12 helping you, so it's even easier than usual.
Yeah. After that, you just kind of blast on through. But that is the closest thing the game has to challenge. Is I had to count out turns.
Yeah, counting out turns with vague instructions is is the challenge of that part of the game. And I think
Exactly.
we mentioned this before. This game is it's harder to figure out where you're supposed to go next than actually accomplish things like finish dungeons or boss fights.
Yeah. I don't know. I've somehow gotten myself into a cycle where like I'm playing 3 different games at the same time and all of them are the exact same go find the quest flag chases, which I think I kept switching up to try to find something that wasn't that to play alongside when I got frustrated and I just kept going for old games.
I'm also playing 3 games at the same time, or well, I should say I was around the time I was playing Rhapsody, but the
Hmm,
other 2 I'm playing are so wildly different that that's actually kind of hilarious. 'Cause I'm also playing Bloodborne, for the podcast next month, which is, a little bit different in tone from Rhapsody.
ever so
And
slightly.
and I'm also playing Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is very, very clear every time, like, it it it's you gotta find the stars and collect the stars, and it's pretty clear where the stars are in that game.
Yeah. You know where you're going.
Yeah, but in Rhapsody, it's slightly nonlinear, and it's not always easy to tell where you're going. In fact, I think it's kind of weird to unlock Oasis because I
Yeah.
think you have to solve the mystery on the suspension bridge, and lower the bridges, and then exit north to unlock the way to Snow White, and then exit south to unlock the way to Oasis. But I think you have to do those things separately. So if you
Yes.
um I think when I was just trying to figure out what to do, I did take a bunch of exits and explore everything as heavily as I could. But I saw when I was looking on I think on an old forum for this game on how to unlock a puppet side quest or something. There was like 2 threads. Where's Oasis? How do I find Oasis?
Because you don't expect to have to just exit 2 different times. I just exited, went back in, exited again, and there was everything.
Yeah, it's it's a weird one. Like, this game just has weird event flagging that,
Yes.
but I guess that does fit in for a PS1 RPG because there's a lot of weird event flagging. The next bit of weird event flagging that I encountered was for the pirate ship stuff in the Waterstone. Uh, oh
Oh yeah, I
boy,
struggled with that.
because you have to hear from from people in town and in the bar that the pirates have their ship docked at a secret cove at the end of a secret cave, and the cave is in town somewhere. So you find the cave, you get on the pirate ship, you have to like talk to a number of people and read one diary
Mhm.
entry, and then go to the captain's room at the end. And then here's where it gets real weird. You're magically transported to a pirate shipwreck where the captain's son had passed away, and you're there with the dead pirate's father and best friend, who both blame themselves for what happened. It's real dark and weird. The pirate captain kind of wants to kill his son's best friend,
Yeah, that part's a little dark.
and then somehow I think Gao follows you in there, not because she's transported to the pirate ship, but because she's just a strong swimmer.
Yeah, she just swam all the way.
She just swam a mile and then dove 200 meters to get to the same pirate ship you did. And you fight a boss fight against her. That's a big nothing burger because that's what boss fights are in this game.
Yeah.
But but again, it's like there's the ghost of a dead pirate dragging you to this shipwreck. You find the water stone, or I think you basically, I don't think you find the water stone even. I think you just you let the pirate's dad and best friend sort of forgive themselves and each other, and then the pirate's dad gives you the water stone. So it's not always easy to tell what's going on,
Yeah.
but this could have been a poignant moment of tragedy and healing, but it just sort of happens a little fast. Uh, and then you and yeah, this game is Wes. This game's pace and tone were so confusing to me sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was so thankful for the ghost ship quest just because, it wasn't the same tiles of a dungeon, it was 2 floors of a pirate ship. And yeah, they recycled each one once, but
Yeah, it's the same pirate ship that the living pirates were on, hidden in the town.
one of the people you talk to makes a comment how, "Oh, this is exactly the same as the old one," and it's like, "Yeah, I get the feeling I know why."
Yeah, then if they make it clear that it's a replica of the ship that sank, but then that's reflected in gameplay very obviously as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of things where they make kind of it seems like they make lore reasons why the low budget the lower budget feel should make sense, which is kind of charming in its own way. You know, looking back at things like that, I'm actually a little charmed by it.
Yeah, and the game is like they acknowledge that, and there is fourth wall breaking moments where where they acknowledge that things are happening a little weird, but hey, we're in a video game, I guess. That again is a little bit charming, but didn't 100% land for me. Like
No,
I think if this game had better writing and was a little bit longer, I would forgive the weirdness or maybe enjoy the weirdness a little bit more.
it had one of those like comedic for its era translations that doesn't always translate super well.
Oh boy.
It's not comedic within its own world. It's you know a half step away from making a Bill Clinton joke at
Yeah,
all times.
yeah. Tell me that you've played Working Designs games without saying you've played a Working Designs game.
Exactly.
This is not Working Designs. This is Atlas's in-house studio from the late '90s, which and then, it's a little bit unusual. Like Atlas did localize a couple of the early Nipponichi games. I think this one and Disgaea, but not La Pucelle. I think La Pucelle was handed over to Mastiff, which is a UK studio. Um, but the new version of La Pucelle was retranslated by Nipponichi. At least I'm pretty sure because they also localized the PSP remake that was never given to that was never released worldwide. And Nipponichi's or Nisa, their own studio now, has been localizing every Disgaea game other than the first PS2 release. So this is Atlas, but this is the brief period where Atlas was doing Nipponichi's stuff, which is not an important detail, but That was important to me, damn it, back in the 20 years ago when I was eating up every game that they released.
Yeah, it was one of those you gotta pre-order them because they're not gonna be around for too long, unlike in the digital age where, it'll be there.
Yeah, I had missed out on Mackay Kingdom 20 years ago, and it became a little hard to find. But then the re-release got my back. I still haven't finished that re-release of Mackay Kingdom, which is mostly a me problem. It's just because the grinding got weird. But but yeah, Nippon Ichi really did have a vibe in that time for basically the entire decade of the 2000s, where they had these games that were fourth wall breaking and very and a little subversive and extremely anime. But whether it was
Yes.
like edgelordy anime like World Eaters and Mackay Kingdom, or sort of saccharine anime like Rhapsody or Phantom Brave, or whatever the hell Disgaea's brand of oddness is, they really did have a specific tone and vibe that they refined through the 2000s, and I still mostly enjoy. Like I view Disgaea 1 and Disgaea 4 very, very highly, and I've been trying to sneak them onto the podcast for conservatively 6 years, maybe longer. Um,
Well, the main thing I remembered about Disgaea was the localization where they put that Tsunami Bomb song as the intro and replaced it, and that honestly, like, spoke to me as a teen playing it for the first time.
And I think my first exposure to Rhapsody, well, no, okay, my first exposure to Rhapsody was playing the very beginning of it on a rental more than 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
then a little bit after that, when I played Disgaea for the first time, Marjorie is an unlockable character in the game, and
Oh,
her and the stage where you defeat her to unlock her is called Beauty Castle.
huh.
Uh, so I knew of Marjorie, and I think I was aware that she was from Rhapsody, but I didn't think too much into it. I don't even think I got I to a point where I met Marjorie. I didn't get to the ballroom when I rented Rhapsody a long time ago.
Yeah, they take their time introducing those characters, comparatively.
I think they mentioned Marjorie, but you don't really meet her until the end of Act One, or maybe midway through Act One. I
Yeah.
don't want to check a walkthrough, but but yeah, like, again, like Nippon Ichi's tone has always been a little bit of anarchic cuteness, and winking at the audience, but they hadn't really figured it out at this point. Is the point I want to make, which makes me again slightly more curious to see if Rhapsody 2 or 3 are better.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I wish listed those right away because I desperately want to see how they evolved.
And I don't know a ton about those games, but I know a little. Rhapsody 2 is it starts Cornet and Ferdinand's son. I'm sorry, daughter.
Daughter.
And yeah, and she meets a boy that is but is from another faction. So it's maybe a slight Romeo and Juliet vibe there instead of a princess rescuing the prince vibe. Um and then the third game is sort of side stories and scenarios from the
Yeah.
first two games, and to which point the DS release of Rhapsody has one or two scenes from Moral Kingdom 3 in it. So if you played this on DS, you would have seen some scenes involving Kururu that we did not get here, but are included in the Marvel Kingdom 3 collection. But regardless, like in their roughly original forms, Marvel Kingdom 2 and 3 were released as a collection not long ago, just a few months ago this year. But like you, Wes, I wish listed these when I was partway through playing the game, and there will be a night where I'm a little bored or something and see it on sale and just go for it. But that has not happened yet, mercifully.
It's coming.
I think the day that we decided Rhapsody was going to be the next game, I checked. I checked the sale, and the collection was on sale for 50% off with like 3 hours remaining.
I think I got it on that same sale right before we decided that we were going to do Rhapsody. So I had played like an hour and I was like, I'm going to hold on to this for a minute.
Yeah, but regardless, let's finish out the story first a little bit. The last Magic Stone side quest we haven't talked about is Frog Island, and
That's a big one.
Frog Island's a little bit weird to unlock. I think you have to do a couple other stone side quests. I'm not sure how
Yeah.
many. Maybe you only need the water stone, or maybe you need to do a bunch. I'm not sure. And then you talk to a couple people in the tavern in Blue Cat, and then they'll mention that the pirates can go to Frog Island now, and then you go back to the pirate ship, and they'll sail you to Frog Island, and then that unlocks the Kuro town on the world map, and Kuro is the Japanese automatopoeia for a frog croaking. So I mean that's why it's Kuro Cola in Super Mario RPG as well. So when you finally arrive in town, the frogs are being threatened by some evil fish that I think maybe Marjorie was involved in them arriving to the island. So you defeat the fish. You talk to the Frog King. The Earth Stone is in the temple, guarded by a centaur. Uh, you're not sure about how you can get there, but then you encounter a love story between a peasant frog named Michael and the frog princess named Caroline. And Wes, the Ballad of Michael and Caroline is maybe one of the most bat crap crazy things in this game.
It really is. It's weirdly effective, I want to say, but it's
It
all over the place.
it is completely wild. Caroline's betrothed to a government official that nobody likes. She's in love with Michael. Michael's in love with Caroline. He's a peasant frog that sings at the banquet, which is a musical number. And then with the comedy beats of it being that at the banquet to thank Cornet for defeating the evil fish, all the food that they serve are bugs, and she's
This is actually pretty solid.
and she's terrified of bugs. It's like, okay, this is pretty funny. I dig this. But then you see Michael try to see Caroline one last time, and then the king sentences him to death for trespassing, which seems like an overreaction.
It's a big.
But then he says, all right, but then Caroline begs her father not to kill him, and he says, okay, Michael, if you bring us the Earth Stone, then I'll forgive this offense. And with the implication being that any frog that's tried to obtain the Earth Stone has passed away and been killed by the centaur. So Michael despairs a little bit, but then he accompanies you because you're looking for the Earth Stone too. Why not? You that unlocks Gamma Temple. There's a puppet hidden in Gamma Temple. I think it's Albatross, the fire bazooka knight. You take care of that business. You fight the centaur, which amusingly is not a human horse hybrid, but a frog horse hybrid, which I thought was pretty funny.
That was actually like good design right there.
That was setting something up and paying it off in a way that was actually quite good. So you defeat the frog centaur, bring back the Earth Stone, and the king is so mad that Michael was successful that he executes Michael anyway.
Yeah, on the auspices of like the crime of, the centaur was our guardian and you killed him, and you still trespass, that's still a crime.
I could not believe it when it happened. Like even for that fairy tale scenario to be subverted and end in tragedy, that's not what was surprising. What was surprising to me was that it happened in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it was just instant. I was expecting like a little bit more drama to play it out, but it's like, no, you're getting executed and
dead,
just gone.
And after you take care of this, if you go to the Ice Temple, I think maybe you have to talk to some frogs in town and then go to the Ice Temple, which is just a sort of a dungeon in the middle of the game. You can find Caroline and Michael's graves because Caroline, it's implied that she died or took her own life after Michael's passing, and they both join you as puppets.
Rhapsody is dark.
Yeah, it's so dark.
How did that happen?
And I think they're basically your best water spells because you have like 1 or 2 puppets that can cast water spells before, but Michael and Caroline are sort of your water spell casters. But it's a totally missable part of the game because I mean, why do you want to go back to the Ice Temple at this point of the game at all?
Yeah, I certainly missed that completely. I didn't even know that was a thing. That adds another layer of depressing on top of that nice little cake they built.
I didn't really use them because I think they join at like a pretty low level, like
everyone does,
like 8 or something. And I already had puppets with levels in the 30s, so I didn't really train them. But it was kind of insane that it actually happened. But here's the point where you get to against another Dragon Quest III moment where you can assemble the stones to travel to the castle in the sky where Marjorie lives. Setting up
a neat little designed dragon for each one.
That's right. Yeah, you have to fight 5 elemental dragons, which is a nice touch, even though they all still died in one round.
Yes.
And then you go to Beauty Castle and do one last dungeon, which is medium length compared to the dungeons in this game. I thought it was less confusing than some of the towers earlier on because
Yeah, I made it through a little bit better. I got lost and went back to the entrance exactly once, but that's better than I've had with some of these.
yeah, I thought Ninetales Tower and Wisdom Tower were sort of confusing, and Beauty Castle was basically navigable. But it's white and green and sort of cute, and it communicates Marjolie's obsession with aesthetics and hatred of her advanced age. Then you get to go and and confront Marjolie and her three goons one last time. You defeat them, but then the evil vizier or minister or whatever that was giving you some grief in the castle in chapter one reveals that he has been in cahoots with Marjolie all along to try and take over Marl Kingdom, and he unleashes an ancient weapon from the before times, which I think might have been related to this world being maybe a post-apocalypse.
Yeah, they're definitely mecha.
Yeah, so there's a surprise mecha final boss that you defeat it, then it defeats Marjolie, then you defeat it again, and that ties into a flashback that you experienced that I forgot to mention earlier in the game, where you inhabit the dream of a young Cornet and discover how Cornet's mother passed away. Cornet's mother was some kind of Tenshi or angel race that had the power to manipulate puppets, possibly manipulate souls in the afterlife. And one day when Cornet and A12 were exploring, Cornet accidentally runs into the hidden super weapon underneath underneath Marl Castle, and Cornet's mother passes away, saving Cornet from the super weapon, but then inhabits the spirit of Cornet's doll Kururu afterwards. So Kururu from the beginning has been Cornet's mother guiding her on her journey, which was, which makes sense. And I even think I joked about that being a possibility last episode, not realizing that it was the actual truth. So yeah, that makes Cornet and Kururu's relationship seem a little weirder, but also gives a somewhat of an explanation as to why Cornet has these powers. I mean, she comes from the bloodline of some non-human magical beings.
And presumably the sequels do go a little bit deeper into that as well. I think that the Netherworld dungeon, at least you're promised that it'll go a little bit deeper into that, but I didn't do it, and I don't think you did it either.
Yeah, I didn't do the Netherrealm dungeon, uh, and we know that Cornet names her daughter Kururu after her puppet slash mom. Although I think her mom did
It's a
have
good sentence.
I think her mom did have a different name in life.
Yes, she did.
And I think it's sort of funny that how they have the Nether Realm as this like otherworld hell, and it's explored in the Marvel Kingdom games a little bit, but then they made Disgaea, which is about the different Nether realms. So to sort of flip things on its head a little bit, because in Disgaea, it's you're in the Nether realm where violence is good and duplicity is normal, and the final boss of Disgaea 1 is a group of angels. So it's a yeah, it's almost like the Rhapsody or Marl Kingdom games, including its spin-off La Pucelle, are almost too sweet. So they just deliberately got weird for Disgaea, which became a spin-off bigger than its original parent series. Kind of like, oh, I don't know, kind of like the Jeffersons or the Simpsons might be even be better.
Yeah, maybe the ultimate
Yeah, I mean,
example.
no one gives a damn about the Tracy Ullman show after 1990, but then The Simpsons became one of the longest running scripted shows in history. Yeah, crazy. But anyway, I think that Rhapsody's a little bit better than the Tracy Ullman show.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it is a fun game with fun moments, and even silly things like when you're about to fight the super weapon, you can go to the statue of Ferdinand, and it'll heal you like a holy goddess statue.
I had
And
no idea.
yeah, that's you heal yourself before the final boss, and the final boss is it's manageable and everything ends happily, and Galazzo or Galonzo, whatever the evil minister's name is, he's thrown in the dungeon, and Cornet's like at first she doesn't think she's worthy of the prince, but then Prince Ferdinand's like, hold on a minute, you saved me, and I've kind of liked you from the beginning. And then they live happily ever after, and they name their daughter Kururu, and we know that this Kururu is the main character of Rhapsody 2. It's very sweet. It didn't really tug at my heartstrings that hard just because of how ridiculous this game is.
Yeah, it's
But
the happy ending, but there wasn't a lot of dramatic tension throughout to
yeah,
make that feel like a relief.
yeah, because this game is so fast, and because it takes such wild swings, like the frog murder on in Kero Kero Island, and maybe your baby dragon companion being undead, like it feels so disjointed that I think that a moment like that ending that should have been emotionally manipulative and getting me tearing up a little bit at the end, it really didn't, because it's really just like this game is fun and interesting and cute, but it's sort of in and out and over real fast. And which is, I don't think this game is disappointing because my expectations were not through the roof. Like I thought this was a short cute RPG from 1998, and it was, but it's just so strange in addition to being those things that I'm not sure how to feel about it, but I am interested in playing the other two now.
Yeah, I think that's the most impressive thing it did for me is it made me real interested in the other two. Um, because this feels like the first draft in a lot of ways. It's a pretty solid first draft, uh, but I feel like maybe if the dungeon design were a little bit more dynamic, or the story beats had a little bit more room to breathe, or there was a little bit less ambiguity in elements of the plot, I feel like it could really come into something. I don't think it's ever going to exit the realm of like charming and wholesome, but I think that it can really hit that better with just a little bit of evolution.
Yeah, if they'd put as much effort into the plot construction as they did into animating Cornet's mother's breasts,
God,
then yeah,
and Marjorie and
I thought that Marjorie had some jiggle physics, and then I met Hot Mom. It's like, oh no, where's this game? What is this game trying to teach us? But yeah, this game is it's not bad. It does some things that are very interesting, but ultimately I think it's sort of a curiosity of the era and not a like standout incredible game of this era. But I mean, if I were to recommend or not recommend this game, I would probably say yes, just because it's so fast and breezy and at least amusing for most of its runtime. And like last month I tried to play Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter for the podcast, which is objectively a better game. Like that game is good and this game is less good. But I wasn't able to finish that one because it's so because it's challenging and subversive and sometimes hostile to the player. While this game is so easy and breezy, it went down incredibly easily. I think my total runtime on the game was probably 9 hours, but my save before the final boss was like 8 hours 15 minutes. It was like I've done side quests in games for this podcast that took less time, that took longer than this.
honestly, I the more distance I get from it, the more I kind of love it, because those little frustrations don't stand out so much as just the things that it tried to do that not many RPGs try to do. You don't see a lot of RPGs trying to go musical. Um, you don't see a lot of them trying to work on both sincerity and fourth wall breaking. That's kind of a Nippon Ichi trademark. I don't know. It's got a lot of cool, unique ideas.
Yeah, I don't think this is an excellent RPG,
No,
but it is a unique and interesting RPG, and that's probably more valuable than it being more technically sound or telling a better story. And I think the ultimate takeaway from this is both you and I wish listed the sequel,
yeah,
which is not nothing. But also not nothing is the time that we spent together discussing this, Wes. Thank you so much for being the one RPG fan staff interested enough in this game to podcast about it with me.
oh, I
And
was excited for this one, so I'm glad to be here.
this was one that I had been aware of for something like 20 years, maybe closer to 25 years, but had just sort of passed me by because I wasn't that interested, but always a little curious. And I finally got to satisfy that curiosity for this podcast. So thank you for that, Wes. And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this journey that probably took you this listening journey took you longer than 20% of the playtime for this entire game. But one game that will probably demand a little bit more of my attention is Bloodborne. I mentioned earlier that I have been playing it for about a week or two now. That is our game for November, the 2015 ish PS4 RPG from yeah, From Software, the company that gave us Demon Souls and Dark Souls and Armored Core and a lot of sort of brutalist RPGs and action games. And we're finally playing a From Software game for the podcast, and it's not uh 3D dot heroes or Kingsfield. It is Bloodborne.
Thank goodness.
But so yeah, that's coming in November. Also in November, we started planning it out. We're doing one episode on our favorite side characters in RPGs that we think deserve a game in their own right. More to discuss there later, and also an episode on fan translations, basically key fan translations from over the years that might have influenced development or re-release of future games. But that's November. We're still not done with October yet. We're doing a Halloween themed episode that we have not recorded yet, but we have started to plan out, and that's going to be really fun. So next week, please look forward to a little bit of Retro Encounter Halloween. But listeners, if you want to contact us about Halloween or Bloodborne or Rhapsody, musical adventure, or your favorite fan translation, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com. RPGFan is also found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, YouTube, Twitch, a bunch of places, and also the actual site rpgfan.com, where we have reviews, features, podcasts, all manner of things for RPG fans to enjoy. Also to enjoy on rpgfan.com is the shop, rpgfan.com/shop, where you can, through TeePublic, purchase RPG fan themed apparel like shirts, baby onesies, phone cases, mugs, a lot of things to find at the RPG Fan shop. But also on RPG Fan are our two other fine podcasts, Random Encounter every 2 weeks about what we're playing and what's going on the site, and Rhythm Encounter every other 2 weeks about RPG music and rhythmness. You can review Retro Encounter and our other podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or however you listen to podcasts. Please give us all the feedback you're willing to give, especially if it's 5 stars out of 5. But if you want to give us as people 5 stars out of 5 feedback on social media, how do you find us? Wes, tell them.
On Twitter, you can find me at Wes Iliff, and on Blue Sky, you can find me at Lone Weasel.
And listeners, you can find me on Twitter at The Real Monsoon most of the time, and on Blue Sky, sollosi.bsky.social. I'm also on RPG Fans Discord as Monsoon Mike. So, Wes, I'm not sure if I want to start playing the game, the next Marvel Kingdom game immediately, go back to playing more Bloodborne, or seeing if I can revive some beloved family pets as puppets. Man, that's a little bit too Pet Cemetery for my.
It gets a little bit creepy at that point.
Yeah, is this secretly a Stephen King RPG?
It might be.
Oh no. Well, listeners, thank you. Good night and good luck. Halloween starts early.